Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Tell You What, the podcast, where we talk with musicians about songwriting and the creative process. My name is Mike, and our guest for this one is Willi Carlisle, here to talk about his most excellent record, Peculiar Missouri. Before we talk about Willi and what a great guest he was, a brief interlude to pitch my latest little project. Now that everyone and their children have officially started podcasts, I've decided to jump on the next trend in music nerddom, the email newsletter. For some reason, filling people's inboxes with semi-coherent rants on a regular basis is popular now, and I can be semi-coherent with the best of them, so I am in. My once-per-month newsletter is called Hey, How's It Going? And let me first point out that it is free and well worth every penny. In it, you will find a few music-based recommendations, new artists, albums, songs, videos, books that you might not have noticed on your own. I also take the opportunity to present a short essay on vaguely music-related topics that interest me. Longtime listeners to the podcast may recall a few of these that I included in introductions to past episodes, assuming you weren't too quick with the skip ahead button. Or maybe you've attended a show here at Tell You What Studios and been mesmerized by my introductory talks. The good news for you skip-aheaders and showgoers is I don't have to clog these introductions with my ramblings anymore, as the newsletter provides that service. And with the newsletter, you get the essays in virtual printed form. You can refer back to them forever. Helpful for settling arguments, helping your kids with their homework. The use cases here are almost infinite. And it is easy to sign up. It will take about 17 seconds. We have tested and confirmed this here at Tell You What Labs. You can do this signing up at our website, tellyouwhatpodcast.com, or just drop me an email at tellyouwhatpodcast@gmail. Since it is so easy, just, go ahead and humor me and sign up. You don't even have to actually read it. But if you do, I predict you will find something interesting. I'm just saying. I will allow you to pause this podcast and take the 17 lab-tested seconds to sign up right now, in fact. And if you do find you like the newsletter, please pass it along to a music friend or encourage them to sign up themselves. Okay, back to Willi Carlisle. I saw Willi perform last fall at the Folk Alliance Conference in Kansas City, and I found him to be a highly entertaining performer, but also an intriguing character, and really wanted to get him on the show. He is on the road almost all the time, so it was a bit tough to find the moment, but with the help of a couple members of his team, Devin Legere at Hearth Music and Ellie Newman at Lightning Management, we eventually got together. So big thanks to Devin and Ellie. As I was preparing for this conversation, I hit upon the idea of changing up the format somewhat from my usual approach. Willi's record, Peculiar Missouri, is really great, and one of its defining features is that it is filled with a variety of song styles. There are waltzes, talking blues, trucker songs, poems set to music, traditional folk songs, and so on. As I listened, the variety of these songs each brought up questions and concepts I wanted to cover with Willi. So we dive into the songs right out of the gate in our conversation and use them as springboards for covering the many interesting facets of Willi's creative life and his approach to his art. I really loved this conversation, and I think many of you will too. Willi is an absolute delight and has many fascinating insights to offer. I have to add, we did face some technical difficulties with Willi's internet service. He dropped out of the recording several times. Fortunately, we were able to recover and continue. But at one point, Willi was in the middle of an epic rant about the history of poetry throughout civilization when his line just dropped. You will hear him talking about the ancient Egyptians, and the next thing you hear is him saying, "Oh man, where was I?" There was actually about 5 minutes of us fussing around getting going again before he came back with that. I decided to leave in the poetry rant, even though Willi was unable to actually finish his point, because his voice sounded like poetry itself to me, so full of energy and emotion, it was worth leaving it in for that alone. Anyway, the rest of our conversation was luckily basically unmarred. As Willi mentioned, he's going out on a big headlining tour soon, so look for him at a venue near you. He is such a great entertainer, you will not be disappointed. And keep an eye out for his next album, which Willi sounds pretty excited about. All right, everybody take a breath and enjoy this fun Tell You What discussion with Willi Carlisle.
I don't know, but I heard that there's more. Our honey is knocking on the door.
All right, Willi Carlisle, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you're coming to us from your home in Arkansas, right? You're on a break from touring currently. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I've had about a month. I'd call it a month off, but actually I've been doing exactly what we're going to talk about today. I've been writing songs, so it's been mostly working.
I'm glad that's on your mind then. You toured a lot last year after the very successful release of your record, Peculiar Missouri. Was it much different for you on this tour, playing to maybe bigger rooms, to folks who were familiar with your songs all over the country? Must have felt pretty good.
It felt amazing. There is nothing like, the whole thing is amazing. I love my job. I'm so glad I get to say that. It is different to play for rooms full of people that know the songs already, especially just being able to lock eyes with somebody that knows every word to a song, and it's like, that I don't even know all the words to this. Like, this is contextual memory, right? I'm going to mess this up in a second. I don't know. Was it different? Yeah, there were a lot more people, but for me, the joy is really, really similar. It was great to get some recognition, but there are some things I miss. Like, I kind of miss having a room full of people that don't know who you are turn their heads and be like, "Ooh, I like that," really try to get them. But there's also those people. That's actually the person I try to lock in with the most. Is who is it in here that doesn't know me at all? And if I can make them smile, it's like I'll know I've done my job tonight. I've earned their $10 or whatever.
Well, we're gonna get back to talking about live performance a little later, but we were talking earlier, and this break is going to end, and you're heading out on a headlining tour soon. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll be my first headlining tour, and it's all over the Midwest and over much of the South, over and down to Texas and over to Colorado. I'll be doing a little bit of opening for Sierra Farrell.
Oh, nice!
I'm really stoked on those shows, and then I'll be bringing along another great songwriter, Willi T. Taylor, and Adeem the artist with me on that run.
That's a great lineup, and folks can see those dates on your website, I'm assuming?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Excellent. All right, so I want to take a different approach to this discussion than I normally might. As I was preparing, I was having a hard time picking out just 3 or 4 songs from your record to discuss in the last portion of the talk, as we usually do here, because a lot of your songs brought up interesting questions or topics I wanted to talk to you about. So, how about we do this instead? Instead of waiting till later to talk about the songs, we'll just dive in now, work our way through the songs, using them as kind of guideposts for our discussion, and see where that takes us.
I'm here for it. Yeah, sounds good.
We may fail spectacularly, but we'll be doing this together.
All right. I'm in the boat.
All right. All right. So first I'm going to try a brief and likely highly inaccurate summary of your earlier years to get us to where I want to get the conversation. You were brought up hearing folk and bluegrass music in your homes in Kansas and Illinois. At college, you get a guitar, play in a punk band, get a banjo, start to explore the traditional and folk music of the United States. You end up in graduate school studying and teaching poetry in the Ozarks in Arkansas. Is this close enough?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Great. So this leads me to the song Down and Back. In Arkansas, as I understand it, you start to become interested not just in folk music, but in folklore, in the culture surrounding musical traditions, including square dance. So this song, Down and Back, I believe is inspired by square dance calling. Am I correct?
Yeah, it is.
Great. Can you talk about exploring the cultures and communities involved in traditional music, maybe specifically square dances, and what you took from it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Square dancing for me was this incredibly empowering way of knowing community that is before the internet, that's before I was the kind of kid that was likely to find the majority of their peer group in a small town, from the internet or something like that. But square dancing was this radical, like, upturn of that idea. It's a potluck. It's a pie contest. Sometimes it's a way to hold everybody's hand. It's a work exchange. It's how's your mom and them. It's everything. And these sorts of gatherings were still happening in the Ozarks, and they still are. And they became a really essential way of the way that I wanted to know people and get to know myself. I first encountered them when I was in Illinois, and somebody invited me to one, and I didn't know if it was a date or not. I had so much fun it didn't matter, right? I'd been to punk concerts and done a bunch of moshing and stuff like that, but I had never had the kind of dances where, you bump into a person in their 70s, and you don't knock them down, but they know the move better, so they hold you up. It was, as a punk, you don't have elders. You're literally like, you're like, fuck the police, fuck my parents, right?
Right.
But in square dancing, it was like, oh, hey, this guy's like, I'm going to get to go out to this guy's farm and do some interesting work, or like, I'm going to get to learn some cool fiddle tunes that are, just like punk music, very difficult to listen to, but very engaging. When people talk about grindcore drumming, they need to listen to the double up bow, the Round Peak region's fiddle playing, or the Virginia Shuffle, the Ozark region. I guess what I mean is it's touching the same elephant, right?
Yes.
It was partially that I was looking for that. I was looking for like some kind of community I could think of as home or find some comfort in, because I didn't enjoy a lot of the aspects of going to college. I went to a little, I think this gets overstated sometimes because I am educated. I do feel lucky about that, and that is privilege. Don't get me wrong. I also when I showed up to liberal arts colleges so that I could escape troubling small town psychosexual and human dynamics and a conservative mindset that I found pretty limiting to me personally, I immediately was dropped into the basket of a bunch of lawyers and doctors' children and people that I didn't understand. So I went back to the root. It was like, let's go fucking square dancing. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's make a punk band with the other kids with these guys that got laid off from the Maytag plant. Let's hang out in town. Yeah, we're gonna go to our class on Walt Whitman, but I'm showing up high. So that's a long answer, but the moment I got to Arkansas, I saw that this community was alive. It wasn't just revivalists; it was people that learned from their great grandparents, and that I feel like our history is not something that we always have access to. So the down and back is to cut myself off here. The down and back is a square dance call. Basically, I was kind of like, well, let's just make a square dance call that's a song. And the only difference is an actual square dance call might be a little more instructive.
Won't you cut all the timber, mine all the coal? Well, half of West Virginia's a fishing hole. Big mama sitting on a piglet in a pen. You can't get to heaven in a big black Benz. Oh, up all that jack till my money comes back down on the down and back. I'll be right here till my money comes back. I'll vanish in the woods without a damn trace. Some never forget, oh, what's his face? Small town gossip, wrath of God. Fish, cut bait, spare me the rod. Whoa, up all that jack till my money comes back down on the down and back. I'll be right here till my money comes back.
Did you end up calling square dances yourself?
Yeah, it's actually probably what I do best in the world. I wish that I could just be a square dance caller.
Well, can you talk about what skills are involved in that and maybe how it makes those skills make their way into your performance now?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to like to memorize poetry and songs for fun. I would kind of recite to myself, like for comfort. I used to take a lot of long walks, and I would sing songs that I knew. I would sing and recite to myself a lot as a kid. I think that kind of brain really helped. That helped me get that kind of thing done. But the skill set involved would be being able to recite a lot of things really quickly, and then basically knowing your left from your right is not hard. I like to focus on patter because I find that to be the funnest to memorize. Some people just say circle to the left. Now everybody dive under your outstretched arms of the person to the left of you, and they're really, really literal. I like to go Allemande left to your left hand, it's back to your partner right and left hand over hand and heel over heel. The more you dance, the better you feel. Hand over hand and foot over foot. The more you square dance, the better you look. So on. And
That's great.
Add in the jokes and the kind of material.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So at this point in our story, you are studying and teaching poetry. Eventually you decide on music instead. But let's back up and talk about poetry for a minute. The song in question here is Buffalo Bill. In this song, you have set the poetry of E. Cummings to music. I often like to ask songwriters to compare and contrast poetry and songwriting. You seem like a good target for this question. You can take this in any direction you like, either from, say, an academic standpoint about the technical differences between poetry and song lyrics, or maybe more personally from your own creative process, how you have approached lyric writing versus poetry writing and how you see them kind of side by side.
Well, so Buffalo Bill was a poem I liked for a long time, and I was teaching a class at the community college. For anybody that thinks being a visiting adjunct instructor is a big shot, you get paid a lot less than I got paid for being fired from construction sites and stuff like that. It really, I can't. The reason I like to overstate that is because sometimes I think somebody thinks that reading for a living is like a lauded position. Ooh, boy. But I was teaching a class, and that poem just happened to be in a bad textbook. I've been singing poems my whole life. When I teach a world literature class back in the day, I used to like to say, look, there's just no difference between poetry and songs. It's just the way that we think of it. This might be poetry as we understand it now has only existed for a couple hundred years, right? Hadn't existed for very long, and it has to do with a literary tradition that excluded most ordinary people. That to me is not a literary tradition. That's like the bourgeoisie. That's the people with all the money being like, we have our set of knowledges up here, but there's a lot of people that isn't going to go to, because we think that regular people don't matter and don't understand and and it's okay for them to be working in a salt mine or working on a steam engine while we begin to foster this literary tradition that has nothing to do with them. Well, the human spirit has been feeding itself based upon its own energy for many thousands of years longer than we've had written poetry, right? The first written down poem in the English language is a hymn. The ancient Egyptians thought that their hieroglyphs had actual magic powers, that by speaking the word, where the heck was I? God.
You were talking about poetry being an elitist recent phenomenon, and for thousands of years, the common people have been expressing themselves in their own way.
So, as far as like the difference between poetry and songwriting, I mostly just think it's BS, and that any song can be a poem and any poem can be a song, and the rest is up to aesthetics. And I do recognize that including a sonic element does change things, but we have to write towards music. And that to me is really beautiful. There are people that just speak musically who I would struggle to not call poets. I've been thinking a lot about a man that I knew, Uncle Dave, and Uncle Dave used to say at prayer at the dinner table, he used to say, "Forgive us where we fail you." And I just love the way he accented that phrase. I just thought it was a beautiful piece of poetry that he'd come up with. That is a prayer.
Yes.
I like writing songs and poems. Sometimes something does feel more suited to be read than sung. But also with a song like Buffalo Bill, that's kind of me saying, "Hey, we can do this. Why not?" I put it to that banjo is a 19th century style banjo. And so I wanted to put 21st century poet talking about the attractiveness of a 19th century genocidal Civil War general and set it to the tune and timbre of America's weirdest, most colonized instrument.
Oh, Buffalo Bill's defunct, who used to ride a water-smooth stallion and break 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pigeons just like that. Oh, Jesus, he was a handsome man, and what I want to know is, tell me, how do you like your blue-eyed boy, Mr. Dale? Tell me, how do you like your blue-eyed boy, Mr. Dale?
Next song up, Goodnight Loving Trail, which is a cover of a song by Utah Phillips, who I think you consider to be a musical hero of yours. Can you tell us something about Utah Phillips, why he is important to you, and important to what you are trying to do as a songwriter yourself?
Yeah, Phillips was an anarchist folk singer. After the Korean War, I believe that he kind of became a drunk and a ne'er-do-well, and he kind of found salvation through some radical halfway houses, and began to write these songs. He'd already been writing a lot of songs, but he never really abandoned a pretty radical political viewpoint. He sang a lot of songs from the IWW, from the International Workers of the World. This is back when people were, fighting for child labor laws and to make sure that the black lung didn't kill people by the time they were 30. He was singing those songs in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, right? So he was already a revivalist. Mm-hmm. But he talks about this idea, I can't get out of my head, this great river of history, that when we actually discover the history of real people, not just the history of kings and conquerors, that we have access to this thing that can purify our mindset. This long line of strong and intelligent and capable people. As somebody that sometimes doesn't feel strong or intelligent or capable, hearing that you could find that in your own background and your own backyard was really empowering. So yeah, I love that song, Goodnight Loving Trail, because it's about a cook on a wagon train. It's not Marty Robbins talking about a big iron on the hip. It's not Western music, right? It's not soundtrack music. Right. It's, man, I'm a cook on a wagon train and I am pissed off, right?
Well, you're too old to wrangle or ride in the swing. You beat the triangle, curse everything. If dirt were a kingdom, brother, you would be king. On the goodnight trail, on the loving trail. Your old woman's lonesome tonight, and your French harp blows like a low-balling cap. It's a wonder the wind don't tear off your skin. Get in there and blow out the light.
Well, I think this is a good segue into our next song and our next question, because we've been talking about musical traditions. I want to bring up the song Life on the Fence. Here we have a song about a closeted queer man and his struggles. So with this song in mind, how do you see your place as a songwriter in the folk music tradition, a lot of which revolves around handing down and preserving old songs? Can you talk about bringing new songs into this lineage, particularly maybe songs like this one? I guess specifically, my question might be, do you see this song as continuing the folk tradition of exploring the issues of the common man, or maybe you trying to stretch boundaries here and use the form to make more of a statement?
Oh, man. The direct answer to the question, I guess, would be that I always see things as a continuation. When I began that, I had been listening to Patrick Haggerty, the late Lavender Country's great queer country song, Crying These Cocksucking Tears. And I was also thinking about Patsy Cline and Dolly Parton, and how this kind of two generations of women had written songs that were a lot of times designed to shock. actually, shoot, not Dolly Parton. I'm thinking of Loretta Lynn, damn it. Pardon me. Loretta Lynn with The Pill, Fist City, and songs that were kind of shocking at the time. Boy, forgive me, Loretta, if she's looking down on me.
Well, we're going to edit this anyway, so don't worry.
Well, good. So I was thinking about Loretta Lynn and Patsy Cline and female songwriters that occasionally would do things that would be shocking to an audience. And then I was thinking about Patrick Haggerty, who that song begins with this brash phrase, "I'm fighting for when there won't be no straight men because they've all got a common disease." So, Jason Isbell waits until the third verse to punch you directly in the gut, right?
Right.
Patrick does it instantaneously because that man did not give a damn if you liked him or not, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't want to do that gut punch at first, but I got to thinking, what would be my version of this? And I guess it'd be my own lived experience. I do not want to be like typecast as a queer country artist. It happens sometimes, and I'm okay with it. Really, what I am is, like we all are, is a human being, and I want to be able to write about all aspects of that experience. And
right.
I also think that it's a good song because of that. I also know a bunch of people that like The Pill and Fist City, who are, pro-life and would never punch anybody.
He's calling me up. He's sure I might love him. I'll only answer when I'm drunk to the leaves. We talk about Memphis, living so rough that the strength in his voice makes me weak at the knees. Not sure what I saw, for I looked in his eyes. We ain't star-crossed just 'cause stars might align. Ain't proper high lonesome till it's almost too sad to be true. But what happened in Memphis made too much sense. There's a part of my life she don't know exists. Why is living a lie more easy than life on the face? Why is living a lie more easy than life on the face?
Do you see a conflict between embracing, preserving, celebrating tradition while at the same time trying to fight to open minds and change some of the paths that we're on?
Yeah, and I live there, and I like it there. I can't say I'm comfortable there all the time. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
When I listen to, living out in the country and listening to, sometimes the only thing available is the radio. We've had trouble on the internet here just this afternoon. I believe that there has been a great division campaign that has been perpetuated by a very specific kind of media, and that is happening at the same time as a great surge in information availability and also like an identity-based kind of freedom in more liberal, populated, and accessible communities. Here's what I'll say about that, though. I have never been more welcomed than in the homes of people that would classify themselves as conservatives. I have never known anybody more willing to, one, say something incredibly rude to somebody, what I would call incredibly rude, and then give them $100 and the shirt off their back, either. I don't mean to commit both sidesism, which is, to be totally clear, if you can't tell by my lingo, I'm not even a liberal, I'm a leftist, right? And there's a lot of mainstream conservatism in terms of Republican politics I find absolutely abhorrent. But as far as person-to-person goes, I believe everybody is quite capable of loving and respecting lots of human beings, and that is exercised far more readily than the media would have us believe, in my lived experience and watching the experiences of others.
That's great. Okay, I want to talk about live performance. We hit on this very briefly at the beginning. Let's dig in a little more. You do a lot of touring. Playing live seems very important to you. The song I bring up here is Your Heart's a Big Tent. I saw you perform last fall at the Folk Alliance Conference in Kansas City. We were in a conference room in the early evening. It had weird lighting. Do you remember this?
Boy, I do.
Yeah, you're laughing because it was a little weird. The audience was a mixed bag of like industry people, old folkies, fellow musicians, and you played this song, Your Heart's a Big Tent, very early in the set. It's a sing-along. I got the sense at that point people weren't quite sure what to make of you, but you got us all singing along. By the end of the song, and certainly by the end of the set, we were all on your team. So with that in mind, can you talk about what live performing means to you? And are you you did hit on this earlier, let's hit it again. Are you kind of reading the room as you play, getting the vibe of the room? It seems like you were almost kind of challenging that crowd I was in at the time. So what do you have to say about all that?
Yeah, I mean, I always got to keep just a little bit, just keep a little bit of piss and vinegar in me, stay a little bit pissed off and be a little bit confrontational with crowds. I love that kind of thing. That was a weird room. And, but look, all rooms are weird, right? All these rooms it's full of weirdos all the way down. It's turtles all the way down in terms of weirdos. And you never know what you're going to get. And even if everybody's on your side, you still we still are all there to grow and experience something together. I love performing because, you get to be a conduit for a room full of emotional possibilities, right? Everybody brings their own baggage and also their own capability of joy. Everybody's trying to have the best night they can. It's a hopeful environment. I also think it's something we get deprived of. We don't, as far as, people being like wondering if they should do a sing-along, right? At a place like in a room full of folkies, it's like, I'll be like, you guys put up or shut up. Will you do it or won't you? Right? Yeah. But in a room that doesn't know me, it's like, hey, why don't we see if this feels good? And if it doesn't feel good, you're not really going to hurt my feelings. It's okay. And if it doesn't feel good, don't do it. But if it feels good, let it feel good for somebody else. Be the first person to dance at the wedding. Give yourself that opportunity to see if that's something that you like, or if it gives you good energy. I feel like we used to do that together, and I know that's one of those things I've seen at square dances and pickin' parties and potlucks and stuff like that. Is that people get to fill those roles, and I don't feel like we get to feel it nearly as much these days. As it maybe our grandparents used to.
Like the hearts of big tents, gotta let everybody in. Doesn't matter who they are, if they do right or where they've been. Everybody gets in.
Feel like live performance and being out there on the road feeds back into your creative process in some way?
Yeah. It's honestly, it's my whole life. Actually, I've been telling myself I have to reconnect with my family. I have to have a home. I can't live in the van. I have to tell myself stuff like that because of how much energy I get from the road and how much, I guess it just feels, sometimes it feels like these great stories are everywhere, and I just need one more. I just need one more. I'm a little bit addicted. I can't lie, Mike. It might actually be bad.
Yeah, that's great. I want to talk about humor and its place in music, in your music. You have such a great way with a phrase and a rhyme. These great lines you come up with, your use of humor is so well placed. It's in service of the message of the song. It grabs our attention. I'm thinking of the song, I Won't Be Afraid. This song is kind of an anthem, very powerful song. Yet right there in the middle of this solemn chorus, you hit us with, Lord knows I've done some dumb shit and I plan to do some more, but I won't be afraid anymore. It works so well. Talk about your use of humor as a device in your songwriting.
Well, in that case, I was just trying to cut that song could read as pretty cheesy.
Yeah.
The chorus is just "I won't be afraid anymore," sung 3 times, and so you got to cut that. If you step into the elevator and rip that, you better say something afterwards, right? You better claim it. So,
Yeah.
Lord knows I've done some dumb shit, and I plan to do some more, but I won't be afraid anymore. It felt good in my room. When I first sang it, that one came out in just a few minutes. I think I made some light changes at one point, but
I'm going to quote another part of the song because I just think the whole thing is so well done that the contrast between the humor and the, you might say, cheesy message of the song, but it works. You say, "I will clear the beer cans from the coffee table. I will clean the ashtray on the coffee table. I will do a third thing. I am sure I am able." And then eventually there's a pause. And then you say, "I will love whomever I well please." So you set us up with the humor, you get our attention, you pause, and then you come through with the line, the powerful line. Does that just happen, or is that a thoughtful presentation that you came up with?
one, of course, right? So there's this thing a clown said to me one time, and I've never gotten it out of my head. This clown was from Serbia. Can't make this stuff up, right? So weird people you meet when traveling, and they said double direction, edge of balance, and they said it like it was a rule that everybody knows, like knife on the right, fork on the left, or something. I don't know, and so that is like if you're going to go hard in one direction, go hard back the other way.
Okay.
That's really what I think of that as. Is yeah, it's intentional, but also I'm just doing the thing that feels good, which is if I'm going to lean all the way over, just to lean back all the other way and try not to fall down. I also just wanted to rhyme coffee table with coffee table. I was talking to my buddy Chris Acker, another great songwriter, about that, and he says that's his favorite thing, and that he looks for it when somebody rhymes the same word twice, but makes it good, makes it work, So it's kind of a little bit bucket list, actually, that part.
I will clear the beer cans from the coffee table. I will clean the ashtray on the coffee table. I will do a third thing, I'm sure I'm able. I will say one nice thing before noon, before 1, before 2. And I will love whoever I will please. I will kiss my friends upon the cheek. Kiss my friends upon the cheek. Repeat till I believe. I don't have to be ashamed what I love. And I won't be afraid anymore. I won't be afraid anymore. Lord knows I've done some dumb shit and I plan to do some more, but I won't be afraid anymore.
I want to talk a little bit more about your creative process, if we can. Do you have any practices you try and use to come up with ideas? Sitting in a quiet room, daily writing practice, going for a walk?
Actually, I was talking about needing like family and needing to cultivate like some home life things. All of my chop wood, carry water, like all of my domesticities are based around writing or creating, pretty much. Most of the good things I do to take care of myself would be so that I could be a worthwhile writer. I think I have to do other stuff too to feed it now. But boy, do I take long? I kind of do all of it, if I'm honest. Like a long cold shower, like a long walk, like memorize this really difficult song, try to remember this poem, like read the old journal, free write, try to write a short story, read a novel read a bad novel, read what people say is a great novel, read a weird, so I don't know. I think that my advice for people ask me for advice, and I just tell them like, you just got to cultivate the mindset that this is something that you do, and everything will turn into it. I really think so. I I tend to be pretty productive. I do write a lot of bad songs. We also just leave space. Sometimes you just got to dog one out. I don't abandon much.
Okay. I want to cover one more song as an idea to talk about. Tulsa's Last Magician. Great song. Maybe a statement on the life of the artist trying to find a path, right? Do you think the paths we have talked about here today and what you learned in the process of those paths as a poet, working in experimental theater, which we didn't talk about, but I know you have done, folklore study, square dance caller, do you think these things have all come together and what you are doing now is the culmination, like using all these past lives to bring your songs to people, get your messages heard? Or is this maybe just another part of your journey that might lead anywhere?
I mean, both. What I wanted to do with Tulsa's Last Magician was write a story song where nobody ever cares about a guy's work, even though he's magical, even though he's good at what he does. I believe that this is not a meritocracy and that the work is its own reward. I believe in it so strongly that I would die just for the right to do it. That sounds excessive, but I've thought about it before. I really have. Usually, after I play a good show, it's like if I die in the car on the way to the motel or on the way to the Walmart parking lot to sleep, I'm happy. Like, take me now if you need to.
Yeah.
I want it to be the culmination. I want to bring as much of myself to people as I can. But, if I wake up in 10 years and I'm a puppeteer, okay, that's fine.
You have done some puppet work in the past, right?
Yeah, I'm not very good at it. I just like it. I was told by a good puppeteer, like, you just really struggle to make something come alive, don't you? I had to look at my hands and be like, curse these paws of mine.
And he wandered down to Tampa, blew everybody's mind, 'cause the crowd was cheap and easy there on beer and blowing wine. Said, I wonder where my dollar went, had the flower bloom so fast. Said, I can't reveal my secret, well, they rarely failed to ask. And the crowd all thought him funny, good at sleight of hand. He had this grand finale they refused to understand. They demanded explanation when the card pulled was their own. And that's why Tulsa's Last Magician lost his faith and headed home.
Okay, Willi, the reason I was able to do this format and bring up all these songs, I think, is because of the variety of the songs on the record, the way they sound, where they come from, what they're trying to do. But somehow this work, this album as a whole, really is effective. It comes together so well. Were you concerned at all when you were putting this together about the cohesion of the album, given that the types of the songs and where they come from is a little bit varied?
I knew that there would be people that want me to sound like I'm one band. I actually think of it. I think of it as a little bit of a curse, right? You're always going to have the same. You really want the same fiddle player for every song. I get tired of listening to Bob Wills' fiddle player. I get tired of listening to Tommy Duncan. Eventually, I was worried about it, but I haven't had to make any compromises, and I think that's actually kind of rare. For an artist. And now that there's some compromises on the table, when somebody is like, well, you could try it this way, and I get to say, but why? I haven't had to make any compromises so far. I realize I'm kind of spoiled because I know that there's some people that don't get it, and I'm actually okay with not being for everybody. You have to be, unless you really want to be pop country or pop music or something, in which, that's fine. It's a different game that I don't have much respect for, so I guess it's not fine. So, I want to be a multifoliate rose. or you know,
That's beautiful, man.
trash. But that's the poetic way of putting it. But really, I would just say I want to be a possum's buffet. You know, I want blood and guts and insects and pizza boxes and so on. That's fine. And I hope to do more of that. I actually think that the next record might be a little bit more coherent in terms of like having an overall theme.
So there is another record on its way.
Very much so. I've been writing. Sometimes I'm getting a couple songs a week. I think it's actually written now, and we're just rehearsing it really hard. Trying not to drive my housemates too crazy by playing for 8 hours a day. But that's kind of what we're doing.
That's great. We look forward to that, and definitely look forward to the upcoming tour. Willi, thank you so much for your time. I would like to finish up by giving you a chance to see if you have a message for our listeners. When I listen to the whole of your record, hear what you have to say about it and what we've said today, I hear optimism, right? Things are screwy, but we can do better. Do you want to offer any final words here?
Hell yeah. Yeah. One of the number one causes of death in the United States I've been thinking about is deaths of despair these days. They've been on the rise for a long time. I think that we don't live in a benighted age. I don't think things were better in the past or anything. But I do think that there is good reason for us to be despairing, but that there is a power beyond right and wrong, beyond left and right, beyond like God and Satan. That's some sort of fundamental togetherness. I think that we can do that in little bits of little microdoses. That's what I think of a concert as, is just a microdose of that optimism that you're referring to. And for me, it's the biggest shield against that kind of despair. And the other thing I like to say is, if you're using drugs, get them tested. And if you're getting it on, get tested.
All right, Willi, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for your time today.
Thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate you.
I won't be afraid anymore. I won't be afraid anymore. Lord knows I've done some dumb shit and I plan to do some more, but I won't be afraid